I think they need to know that regardless of what I've put him through and regardless of the first scene, because the first scene it's kind of a doozy. Matthew is a good guy. Matthew is a kind and caring person. He values his family. He values friendships. So Matthew is a likable guy. And I think those relationships and especially with the family and the deep friendships are something that I don't know if it's unique, but it's something that I plan to continue. That's important to me. So I want the readers to love the Matthew character. I want him to be that good guy. I mean, he's not perfect. He has his flaws, and the readers see those, and he begins to see some of them in himself. So don't think that the guy's perfect. He's not Superman. But I think that's kind of the love letter to the readers. I love Matthew, and therefore I want my readers to love Matthew. And I think that conveys. I mean, all of the feedback that I've gotten across the series, that conveys. I think that's why my readers don't want me to stop the series. They love Matthew.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the author podcast, where we get to talk to amazing authors from around the world. And what I love when I meet an author who's kind of on the same journey that I am, loves the same things that I love, kindred spirit, and that's really fun to have on the show. Lee's here with us today. We're going to be talking about her journey. We're going to talk a little history and a lot more fun stuff as well. Lee, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
This is great. Tell everybody, Lee, where are you in this great big world of ours?
I am in a little town called Burlington in North Carolina in the USA, kind of center of the state. The advantage there is the mountains are close, the ocean's close, and as far as I'm concerned, that's perfect.
There you go. Nice little spot. We have a Burlington here in Ontario.
I know. Yours is much more famous than ours. If you search Burlington, you get Vermont and Ontario. You don't get North Carolina, but...
There you go. Well, everyone needs to go there and make it popular. That's what we need.
No.
No. Everybody stay away.
Actually, okay, Burlington just made HGTV's list of the 30 best small towns to live. Ooh. And those of us who have been here for a little while, I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina originally. That's the state capital. But we've been here for quite a while. And so everybody who's been here for a while is just cringing at that, thinking, no. Everybody just stay where you are. You don't want to be here. It's a great small town and we like it that way.
There's nothing to see here.
Exactly.
Nothing. Yeah.
We don't have all these great parks and places to go. No, just stay where you are.
Just keep it that secret place. Yeah, I like that. That's great. Lee, tell us a little bit about your journey as an author. Where did all this start for you? What was the spark? Because you write a lot. What was the spark that got you started?
So I guess that's a twofold question, because there's the spark that got me started writing, and then there's the spark that got me writing this series. So they're probably two separate questions.
Okay.
This series, there was an opening scene in the first book that you were talking about there being just kind of a download where something just is so in front of your face that you can't ignore it. And that really is what happened with the first scene, the opening scene of the whole series in the first book. And so I was still in corporate America at the time. That was 2014. I was working for IBM and just crazy busy. My kids were young and, all of that. And so I started writing it, and I wrote a couple of chapters and just life. So I pushed it aside, and it just was still there, niggling at the corners of my mind and wouldn't go away. So in 2017, I picked it back up and I said, I'm going to write this book. And I read those first couple of chapters and said, well, this is trash. So I rewrote them and I added a couple of chapters and then life. So then in 2020, when COVID hit and I had lots of spare time on my hands, I said, I'm going to finish this book. And so I sat down and, of course, rewrote those chapters because I still thought they weren't great, and then finished it. So that was the writing journey that got me on the Matthew Paine Mystery series. Just finished the 7th book in that series. It released in April, and it is the 7th and final book in the series. Yeah, it tied up all the loose ends for the characters and their journeys, and 7, is that number of completion. And if you look at the book covers, they're rainbow. They're Roy G. Biv. So when you get to the end of the rainbow, you're done, right?
There you go. I like that. That's really good. I like that you have that all put together. What was the spark then, jumping back earlier then, before the series, that got you started?
As a kid, I was an avid reader. It was one way that I could stay out of trouble. You know, you never get fussed at unless you're supposed to be doing chores and you're off somewhere with your head under, you know, like you made a little fort and you crawled in with your favorite books and you're reading and you're supposed to be doing chores. Unless that's the case, you stay out of trouble when your nose is in a book. And as a kid, I think I was insatiable. You know, my mother would take me to the library in the summer months and I would pick up however many books I was allowed to pick out. And in about 2 days, I had finished with those. And I think she just would kind of look at me exasperated, like, well, don't you want to reread them? No, I want to go get some more. And so that was my favorite summer activity was reading through books. And just recently, my parents are in the process of downsizing, and my mom gave me a collection of books, and we'll use air quotes around that word loosely, that I had written as a child. And they're pages that I had folded over. Some of them are stapled down near the little spine. One of them is hand sewn down the spine. I think I decided
Wow.
that books were supposed to be sewn and not stapled, and I got a thimble and I can't imagine how difficult that was, but anyway, I vaguely remember it. So they were all illustrated, of course, because, you know, they were children's books. They had to have pictures. And one of them was about a ghost and just whatever was inspiring me at the time, you know, two best friends and kind of their journey. So they were children's books written by by a child. And so
Fun to look at, though.
they really were.
Yeah.
And some little books that I had put together for school assignments that I had to have made the teachers laugh. I mean, just some of that stuff is like they had to have laughed. So
But that's interesting,
that's
right?
the
Because
beginning
that's
of
the
the
spark.
journey.
It goes back, right? It kind of everything kind of starts from there. I talk to people about, well, you can't write book number 5 until you've written book number 1.
Yeah,
Like it all has to start somewhere, right?
yeah. Although you might have some ideas for book number 5 while you're still writing book number 1, but
Right.
truly, you can't write
It's
it until
interesting.
you write the first one. You do have to just
Amazing.
start and jump in.
What else could you tell a new author listening to the show? Early days, they don't really know what's ahead for them. You've kind of done this trail now, so what can we teach them?
I would say take it one step at a time. If I had realized, this is probably what they don't want to hear, if I had realized everything that would go into creating this book and this series, all of the marketing and all of the social media and all of the peripheral things that you have to do to, you know, gain a following and get public interested in your book, if I had realized all of that to begin with, I still would have done it, I'm sure, but I would have been overwhelmed. So my best advice is just to one step at a time. If you have the idea, start writing, start developing that idea, turn it into a story. If you're a new author, and especially if you don't have writing experience, I would say maybe join a critique group. There are some online. There are some, you know, check with your local library, check with bookstores, especially if you have a good independent bookstore locally. Those would be the places I would go to find a critique group. And then just join one of those. And honestly, if you just want to sit and listen for the month or two to other people reading and sharing their ideas, then do that. And then when you're comfortable, you can share your ideas and get feedback from people who are hopefully farther down the path than you are already doing what you're doing. That's something I didn't discover, but I wish that I had.
It's a great idea just to join the group and be around creative people,
Right,
even if you don't feel like you're really invested yet and you haven't really done as much writing as everyone else in the room.
right.
Just being around creative people sparks some creativity.
It does. And then that also gives you people that you can ask questions of, and you've already developed the relationship because you're in a group with them. So it's not like you're just, you know, tapping somebody randomly and saying, hey, I have these 20 questions. Will you help me? You have a whole plethora of people to ask the questions. So, you know, why did you go traditionally published? Why did you decide to be an indie? You know, do you write just detailed outlines, or are you a pantser? How do you develop your ideas? How do you know when you're done? So many questions that a brand new author has. Sometimes they don't even know that they have them until they get into the process. But that's just a great resource. Writing clubs, I belong to several. And those are great resources and ways to share expertise as well as learn new things. And conferences, writing conferences, those are all excellent resources.
And maybe a good suggestion for someone maybe a little further down the road with many books released and becomes kind of a machine for you and you're writing and you're doing it all the time to remember there's people who are new that you could give some guidance and some counsel to help them in their journey. Don't forget the people behind you that are coming up behind you.
Truly.
Support them as well.
I do.
Right.
I absolutely do. The only time I'm not really thrilled about doing that is when we're at book fairs or something, and you've got a line and you're trying to sell your books. Then I'll hand somebody a business card and say, here's my email address. Email me your questions. I'll be happy to answer them. Or we can set up a Zoom chat or just a phone call or, whatever. So I'm absolutely happy to help authors who are just starting out and they're not really sure which way to go or what to do next or how to get started.
I like the idea of writing in community. A lot of authors seem to lean towards the cabin in the woods, writing on your own in solitude. I think there's something valuable about having a community around you as a creative person as well.
I think so too. And I mean, there absolutely is still a time for the cabin, and mine is the beach. So if I'm,
Oh, nice.
by that ocean view, oh yeah, I wrote my Christmas book in Miami sitting out in 80-degree weather. And then I just had my Christmas eclectic playlist playing in my ear to try to remind myself that this is a Christmas story. How do I feel now? Feel the chill, see the lights, ignore the balmy 80-degree weather.
Well, you can always come to Canada. We'll definitely fix that for you. You'll be inspired for Christmas, no problem.
All right.
Up here.
Next time I write a Christmas book, I'll think about that.
You come on up here. We'd love to have you. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about your series, because I'd like to introduce that to readers that are listening. What is kind of the thread that ties all of these books together? What can we expect as a reader?
So the Matthew Paine Mystery series features a young family physician named Matthew Paine, obviously. That character really was inspired by my brother and my son. Both of them are very soft-spoken. They're not egotistical, brash, in-your-face kind of people at all. Unless threatened or unless, they have reason to be. And then, the scruff comes up. But there was something that was just so intriguing about that kind of personality. And so loved. I mean, I love my brother and my son. They're both amazing men. Obviously, I respect them very much. And so it's easy for me to love the character. And then I think it becomes much easier for the readers to love the character. So in the first book, Matthew is accused of a murder. And, spoiler alert, he didn't commit it, or the rest of the book series wouldn't have happened. He'd have been in prison. But he befriends the homicide detective that shows up to ask him some questions eventually, after they stop kind of butting heads. They don't see eye to eye on everything initially. And then after that first book, he agrees to sign on as a medical consultant with the police department, which is how a bunch of the other books happen. But he and Detective Danbury is the character who's the homicide detective. They get to be good friends. And by the end of the series, they have a really strong, solid friendship, would do anything for each other as a result of the other 6 books in the series.
What do we need to know more about the main character? How do we picture him as a reader?
Liam Hemsworth.
Okay, that's easy. Next question, right? Yeah, you can't expand on that though. Come on.
So, I'm not a visual person. This blows people's brains and explodes them sometimes. I think in words. So if I'm thinking about a scene, I'm describing it in words, and then the words kind of paint the picture in my mind, not the other way around. So it's not like, oh, I see the scene and now I want to describe it. It's the words describe the scene and that sort of creates the picture. So where some authors are very capable of going out to Pinterest and other places and they have pictures of all their characters and what they look like, it took me a long time to find Matthew. And there was it's a movie, not a series, on Netflix not too long ago that had Liam Hemsworth in it. And when the other main character was a writer and they were on a writer's retreat. And I thought, perfect, my family's gone. I'm just going to sit down and watch a movie that they might not ever want to watch with me, but it sounds interesting to me. And that's when I found him as that character. He is that soft spoken, very confident, but soft spoken character, and his expressions and his mannerisms, and it's the whole package. So,
Hmm.
yeah, Liam Hemsworth in that particular role is Matthew.
Wow. Okay. And Matthew loves history,
Matthew does
correct?
love history, as do my son and my
Okay.
brother. So that is actually a trait that they share.
Good.
So I've had to do a lot of research to support that Matthew character because, for example, if you're on a trip and Matthew and Danbury do travel around a good bit across the series, they don't just stay in the little town outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. They travel around a bit. And so wherever they go, Matthew either knows about the history of the place or because they're going there or passing through, he's interested in researching it and looking at the historical markers on the side of the road. And so while that's not necessarily something I would think to do, it is something that my character absolutely would do wherever he went. So I've had to check out those markers and the places that I've gone to make the settings real. And then
Hmm.
that becomes Matthew's reality. And he is very aware of not wanting to bore the people around him to tears with all of the details, but he shares. And the first time, like for example, they're in Savannah, Georgia, in the second book. And so the first time they're there, Matthew doesn't share anything with that about that with Danbury because they're just fairly newly acquainted. But the second time they go through Savannah, he mentions something about it, and Danbury says, "Oh yeah, well tell me about it." And so he does. So he's both aware that everybody else might not be as into history as he is, but he's very into history.
Hmm.
And cars, he's a motorhead.
Oh, Motorhead. Okay. Nice.
Yeah. So
And so all these things feed into his
they
characters, then,
do.
right?
They do.
Okay.
And he also is a musician. He likes to, not professionally, but he just likes to pick up his guitar. And so his
Nice.
parents brought him a ukulele from Hawaii when they were there. And so he plays that. And that's his unwind time. It's something that he does as a hobby to just unwind when he's stressed.
What is your personal relationship with Matthew as a character? I think it sounds like you talk to your character a lot and he talks to you.
Oh, honestly, if he could talk to me, he would have some choice words for me. That poor guy. I
Oh,
have put him through so much. So some people are really, a lot of my readers are really upset with me saying that this is the end of the series and this is ending and this is the end of Matthew's journey. And when, they insist on knowing why that is, I just say, well, look at everything I just put him through in the last year. It's a little over a year of the series. I put that poor character
wow.
through so much. I think he's been through enough, don't you? And they kind of look at me and they're like, well, maybe. So if he could talk to me, he probably would have some choice words like, why did you have a pipe bomb blow up my condo? Why did you, why was I abducted? Why were the people around me abducted? Why, all of the things that I would say to new authors, if your story starts to get a little bit boring and you're not quite sure what needs to happen, do something explosive. Put your poor character
Hmm.
through the ringer. If they could talk to you, they would probably hate you too, but do it anyway because that's what needs to happen.
There you go. Okay. So when you sit down to write the series, did you know on book one that there's six more books ahead of
No,
you and seven in total?
no, I had no
Okay.
idea. When I wrote book
Oh,
one, really it was just the first question is, can I write a book? It's a simple question.
yeah.
And then I wrote it and it had an ending and it had the story arc. And I thought, that's not half bad. Would anybody ever want to read it? And that was question two. And so that's how the first book started. And honestly, before I had finished that first book, I already had all of the ruminations going for the second book of what was going to happen in the second one. And of course, it's not a start to finish idea of that whole story arc because I am a pantser. I'm not a meticulous outliner. I don't sit down with a detailed outline and know that this is exactly how the story is going to progress. I get bored with that too easily. I don't know, maybe I'm ADD, but I get bored with
Hmm.
that way too easily. And so for me, a lot of the writing excitement is discovering the journey of the characters as we all go along together because I don't have it all planned out from the beginning. Sometimes I get partway through the book and I don't know who the murderer is. I come up with one And I start to go down the path, and I was like, that was too easy. That's not it. And I throw in something else and go, okay, now we got a twist. And that's sometimes how the twists and turns happen. You're sort of following one person that you think is the murderer, or one scenario, how you think the murder happened. And that's just too easy. So that can't be it, clearly, right?
It's too logical. You could jump to conclusions. You're like, well, it's obvious. It's this person.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So
I like when an author does a little twist to the story and you're on one path and all of a sudden you're on another path. You're like, how do we get here?
yeah.
I like that.
Well, you have to put enough, you have to go back and build in a few little clues here and there so that the reader doesn't totally get blindsided by that and go, this makes no sense. How did we get over here? So once you make those twists and turns, then you do have to go back and kind of edit into some of the earlier scenes, enough of a hint or enough of a, dropping a few breadcrumbs so that when you do get there, your readers aren't going, well, that was completely out of the blue. That makes no sense.
Were there breadcrumbs in the first book then that you had written without realizing you had 6 more ahead of you to write?
Probably not you mean it's breadcrumbs to get through the rest of the series?
Yeah, like to give you more story plots for the future as well?
Not as much as you would think. Sometimes
Okay.
there's some divine intervention or something there. This last book is case in point. The first sentence of the book and the last sentence of the book go so perfectly hand in hand that
Interesting.
it blows my mind. And I did not plan it. I didn't even know it. My social media manager said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to film a little clip of you reading the first sentence of your book and then reading the last sentence. And when I flipped to those 2 pages to do that, I just went, wow. I would love to take credit and say, oh yeah, I planned that. That was, that was cleverly planned. It wasn't. It's a really happy accident.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay.
So no, I would not say.
I love when those things happen.
I would
Yeah.
not say in the first book I had anything planned that was going to go through the rest of the series. There were things that were there in that first book that got developed throughout the series and then resolved in the final book. That's true.
So when you say final over and over and over, I'm getting the sense that this is the final book. But does this mean you're done, right?
No,
Like, Are
no.
you finished now?
No.
Good.
No, absolutely not.
Good. That's what I want to hear. Okay, good.
I don't know what I would do with myself if I stopped writing. That's my creative, that's my everything. I just, at this point, no, that can't happen. No, I'm working on developing a new series, and there's a character that I dropped into the final book in the series just a couple of times. She only appears a couple of times, but she's much quirkier. Because in the first series, Matthew came from a very wholesome background and, he learned some things about himself and grew throughout the series. But honestly, the characters around him grew a lot more than he did throughout this journey. He had, kind of both feet on the ground to begin with. And so you watch the characters around him develop and grow and change more than he did. So this one is going to have so much room to grow. She's going to be quirkier and not have a wholesome background at all. And there are a lot of things that she's going to have to resolve about her own self in this next series.
Is it too early to establish kind of how many books you're thinking about in the future, or are you just going to take it one at a time?
This one I'm going to have to take one at a time. I honestly didn't sit down to write 7 books in the last series. And I honestly didn't sit down to make the spines of them be a rainbow and end up with that perfect 7. It was after the second book, my daughter said, you've got a red spine. And then the little Matthew Paine emblem is like the heartbeat that then flatlines. So that's on the cover of all the books. That was always the color of the spine, so red and then orange. And it was my daughter who said, your next book should be yellow, and you should just do the whole Roy G. Biv thing and have the electromagnetic spectrum as, your spines on your book. I said, that's brilliant.
Yeah, those are the books behind you in the video I'm watching.
They are.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they do stand out. They're like very unique.
The whole series behind me. And then I think there's one copy of the new one right behind me, but
well hidden behind you.
well,
Yes,
my
I
head's
like
got
it.
it in the
Yes.
way.
I like it. Okay, so for the readers, what would you say would be your love letter to the readers for your series? What would you like them to know before they jump in? I just want to make a great connection between the readers and with you as the author. What do they need to know?
I think they need to know that regardless of what I've put him through and regardless of the first scene, because the first scene it's kind of a doozy. Matthew is a good guy. Matthew is a kind and caring person. He values his family. He values friendships. So Matthew is a likable guy. And I think those relationships and especially with the family and the deep friendships are something that I don't know if it's unique, but it's something that I plan to continue. That's important to me. So I want the readers to love the Matthew character. I want him to be that good guy. I mean, he's not perfect. He has his flaws, and the readers see those, and he begins to see some of them in himself. So don't think that the guy's perfect. He's not Superman. But I think that's kind of the love letter to the readers. I love Matthew, and therefore I want my readers to love Matthew. And I think that conveys. I mean, all of the feedback that I've gotten across the series, that conveys. I think that's why my readers don't want me to stop the series. They love Matthew.
What do you learn about yourself as a human being, as the author, as you write these stories? How are you different as you write this whole series for Matthew?
I'm definitely more confident as a writer, just for starters. Okay. In fact, I'm not really completely done with Matthew yet because I'm going back through and cleaning up the books. The beginning ones had more fluff. They were bigger and they had more fluff than they needed. And with Killer Convergence, the final one in the series, I feel like I got that right. That's nailed. That's clean. It gives you, I don't know, it just feels so much cleaner. And the writing is so much farther advanced. And so I'm going back and cleaning up the earlier books to drop a second edition of those, while I'm simultaneously working on the Tegan McFarlane character for the next series. I've got some research and some traveling to do. This next series is going to be called Red River Murders because Tegan lives in a place along the Roanoke River somewhere, and I've got to go research exactly where because she's in a small town. But the Roanoke River, because North Carolina has a lot of red clay, it runs red when it rains a lot. And if you're sitting on a bank or somewhere and the sun is going down or whatever, and you're looking at the river, it looks red. So that's why Red River Murders. And that's one of her favorite places to be because she is a medical examiner, but she's also an entomologist. So one of the things that she contributes in the final book of the Matthew Paine Mystery series is determining that a body isn't as long deceased as they thought it was because the bugs on it aren't what they should be. That's all I'll say there.
Okay, yeah. We'll pause there and you have to go get the book for sure on that one. How does it feel to write something that feels like a companion to Matthew's story? Do you feel obliged to continue in the same kind of feel of Matthew's books? Or do you feel the sense of freedom to go anywhere you want without having to really pay homage to that first series?
I don't think I have to pay homage to it, but I think with my writing style and the way I want to relate to readers, the characters will still be... So Tegan herself is not going to be so warm and fuzzy. Her best friend, a guy that she grew up with, is from a big family. He's actually grown up to become a pastor, and he will be the warm and fuzzy character in the books. So it's not Tegan herself. She's quirky. Tegan's going to be quirky as all get out. But her best friend will be the warm, fuzzy, compassionate guy who kind of pulls her back in when she's ready to just go off the rails and go do her own thing. And as far as growth as an author, I guess I didn't quite finish answering that question either.
Yeah.
I grow a lot with all the research that I do for these books. Like, I guess you can guess what my next big study will be. I don't know that much about bugs. But I wanted to give her a really quirky, because she's so quirky. She can be a medical examiner, but so can a lot of other people. There had to be something quirkier about her. So that's her quirk. She loves bugs.
Do you anticipate that Tegan is going to be a little bit of a handful for you as an author?
Probably,
Yeah.
probably. But I think Tegan will elicit sympathy in the readers because she's had a rough background, which will come out pretty much right at the beginning. So it's not that she's a horrible person by any means. She's a little bit reclusive. She doesn't really know how to relate a lot of times to other people, so she just doesn't. And so she can come across, I think, as aloof and maybe sometimes arrogant just because she doesn't know how to relate. So yeah, she has a lot of room for growth, and people will eventually develop sympathy, I think, for Tegan.
What's your fascination with detective work, law, kind of the legal side of what you're doing as a writer? Where does that inspiration come from, and why is that so important for you?
I think you end up writing what you like to read. And so as a
Okay.
reader, I love mystery and crime and thriller and suspense. And I don't want to pick up a book. Okay, now I'm not bashing romance books at all, but I'm just going to use it as an example. There is very much an arc to the romance stories. You know that if they're not getting along at the beginning of the book, they're going to end up together at the end of the book. I mean, it's kind of predictable. And those are fun, especially as Hallmark movies. My daughter and I like to binge on those at Christmas. You watch all the sappy movies. But if I'm reading something, especially if it's a series, and I do like to read series, I do like to binge on series, I don't want it to be predictable. I want my brain to have to work while I'm reading that book to try to figure out, well, what's going to happen? Was that a clue? Was that a red herring? So I think this is what happened. I think this person did it. And then you're testing that theory. So you're actively engaged with that book and with that series all the way through. And that's what I find intriguing. It's what I like to read. And so therefore that just kind of naturally became what I like to write. So that was the draw.
Do you like to challenge your readers?
I do.
Oh, how do you do that?
So there are a couple of books that I won't say that I would give somebody a cash prize if they figured it out before the end, but I'm almost tempted to. If you figure this one out, you're like in 1% of the population probably because, I threw those curves in there on purpose. A couple of them are a
Right.
lot more predictable. They're more having to prove what happened than that the characters think they know what happened. And it's the proving process where all the little kinks and turns take place. But there's a couple of them that if you get to the end and you know what happened, I want to hear from you.
Interesting. What's satisfying for you in the process of writing one of these novels that when you're done, the book is finished and you put down your pen or shut off your computer and you're like, it feels good. Like, what is the satisfaction for you as the author?
Well, some of it is being able to turn off the computer and say, I'm done. That feels good.
Yeah.
I think there are definitely scenes as you're writing that you write through and you're like, oh, that felt amazing. And then there are times when you get through a section and you're like, that was just kind of like, I got it down on paper, but that's going to need a lot of revision. That wasn't anything to write home or get excited about. But I think if you get through a whole book and you've edited the sections that you thought were wow, you've rewritten the sections or sometimes gotten rid of them. Sometimes it's like, you know what, that just didn't even contribute to the storyline. I'm tossing that out. When you get those polished and honed down and you get those sections that really inspired you and you write them and you think, oh, that was awesome. You get the whole book kind of feeling that way. When you close it and you've done your last edit and it's getting ready to get sent off to the real editors to do their work. That's satisfying. So, you're not just saying they walked down the street and went to the whatever. The language is much more descriptive. And when it flows, you know it. When it doesn't, you know it.
It's interesting. I've had authors on that do the opposite of you. They write from, like you mentioned, from image to words, and you're the other way. Could you still picture this whole series with Matthew as a show or a series or something on screen?
Absolutely. I would love to have that happen. I've had a bunch of people tell me it should happen, that it should be a Netflix series. I'm amenable to that. I won't argue with that. As long as I have some input into that creative process. You just can't turn Matthew into a monster. There's some ground rules for how to do that. If Liam Hemsworth wants to step up and play Matthew, hey,
Liam, we know you're listening, so we'll have all the information for you to reach out to Lee. She'd love to hear from you.
I absolutely would.
There you go. We'll put that in the notes, right?
There you
Obviously.
go.
I think it'd be interesting because when you sit down to write this series, you're maybe like book one, you're again not seeing vision to 7 books total. As you kind of unpack this character, there's just so many opportunities to bring this to life, maybe to complement what you've written.
There are. And some of the scenarios in the books really just were things that were drawn from my life that intrigued me. Second book, for example, is called Prefer Death. And in it, there is an autistic gentleman who is much loved in their little small town, but very little understood. And he has the habit of, being at the same place at the same time, certain nights in the same restaurant, sitting in the same space, ordering exactly the same meal and saying, I prefer this. I prefer that. And if they don't get it right, he'll try several more times. I prefer that the sandwich be cut this way. Years ago, when I was a teenager, I was working in a restaurant, and that is not what the guy said. I won't, I won't tell you what he actually said. But there is a guy that kind of was like that, and people kind of ostracized him and picked on him, like, oh yeah, here he comes again. And I just thought, how intriguing. I want to know his story. I want to know who he is. I want to know what makes him tick. I want to understand him. I never got the chance to do that, by the way. So I just kind of recreated him in a book and then unpacked a whole backstory and history and life for him that probably was nothing like the guy that inspired that. But it just was a piece of my past that I wanted to pull in and add some meaning to it, if that makes any sense at all.
So people watching is a good thing for authors to do?
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And you're not mimicking people as much as you are just getting insight for a character. And sometimes like you can sit in an airport and watch people and go, oh, she's an international spy, and you make up her backstory just watching her mannerisms and the way she moves. Oh, he's a drug dealer, and you make up his story. Oh, she's a Fortune 500 CEO. Look at those clothes and that outfit, and you make up her backstory without ever having met the person. But it's absolutely inspiring just to watch people. Now, I will admit there are a few quips that I've overheard from people that have made it into the book. Yeah. Iced has a good one in there where this guy says, my wife, that's not my wife. If I'd married her, I'd have just gotten out of prison for doing 25 to life for killing her. That's not my wife. And of course, he says this to a homicide detective, which is not your smartest move. But I overheard somebody saying something similar to that, and I thought, oh, that's going in the book. They weren't talking to me. I just overheard a conversation.
So all of the friends and family for Lee, just be careful what you say in Lee's presence. You could be ending up to be a character or feeding the story in a future episode or future book, right?
They already know.
They know.
And all the research
Too late for
and
that.
everything, my husband swears we're on the FBI watch list for all the things that I Google. And then for all the things that you can't Google, you just go find the experts and ask them specific, scenario questions, because the scenarios have to be real, even if the storyline and the characters aren't.
Or listen to a true crime podcast and you'll hear how people did what they did. And that makes me nervous to do that as well.
It does. In fact, one of the scenarios I set up, the MIA book, which is the third one, that's the yellow one in the series. And there again, the title has, I love to play with words and titles. So that title has about a triple meaning. So there is a young woman who's missing in Miami. So MIA. MIA is also the Miami Airport Code. So that title has multiple plays on it. But I was concerned when I developed the scenario of human trafficking that, one, it might not be real, because I had done some online classes and a bunch of research, to learn about human trafficking. And normally it's about what to look for if somebody's being trafficked within the country or if somebody's been trafficked into the country. But what's more difficult is trafficking out of the country, which was the scenario that I was trying to set up. So I set it up and I thought, this feels really real. I wonder if this could happen. So there's an NSA agent that's kind of a friend of a friend. Actually, he's former NSA that I consulted because that was his area of expertise was human trafficking. And so he validated the scenario and said it absolutely can happen. And I said, so I don't want to give anybody any ideas. I mean, should I not? He said, oh, it's probably already happening. Oh, okay.
Wow. Well, again, back to the research part. You are passionate about research and having the right information in your books. I can tell that's something that's really important to you, along with the historical significance of what you're doing, the being on site and being there and experiencing what it feels like to sit along that river and see it turn red.
Exactly.
There's so much that you're bringing into your stories beyond simply sitting at a desk and writing. You're experiencing it in real time as well as the author.
That's something that I just feel like I have to do to make it real. I mean, I make
Yeah.
some things up. There are some things that are totally just out of my mind. I move things around. The little diner that's in Peak, the little fictitious town where Matthew Paine and his friends live, is not in the little town outside of Raleigh is actually named Apex. It's very thinly veiled, but that diner isn't there. It's in a town probably 45 minutes west of there called Pittsburgh. Or it was
Nice.
inspired by
Inspired
one.
by.
It's
Yeah.
not an
Yeah.
exact, my mind rearranged everything but the concept came from one that's 45 minutes away.
So, Lee, where do we go to follow your journey as an author to stay up to date on all the new things you're doing in this world? Celebrate with you the launch of all your books. Talk a little bit about a website or where we can connect with you online. And then I kind of want to wrap up with a question here at the end.
Sure. So my website, I realized was probably difficult to get people to if you're speaking it aloud. So I fixed that. So the actual website is Cypress River Media. So like the tree, CYPRESS, River Media, all one word,
Yep.
.com. I realized that as you're speaking that, if it's not written or not displayed, you might not quite get that right. So I also went and bought the Lee Clark author domain and it forwards to that one now.
Oh, good.
So you can find
Well,
me
that's
either
good.
way on the website. I'm all over social media. Lee Clark author as, on TikTok, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on what am I missing? Oh, Instagram.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And we'll have links for all that in the show notes as well. Let's wrap up again, supporting the authors listening. Lee, they're going to start today. They're going to get out their book and start writing. One thing that you would suggest around developing the depth of your character so that your character is realistic and relatable and engaging. How do we make our characters more realistic for our readers?
Characters definitely have to be multidimensional and multi-layered. And I think, honestly, there are lots of things about our characters that authors know that they don't usually put in the books necessarily. So you can sit down and write out a whole character profile, honestly, and figure out the things that motivate the character, what makes them mad, what makes them happy, what is their deepest desire, what are they most afraid of. All of those things you have to know because everybody loves something, fears something, is motivated by something. And so knowing those things about your character makes them multidimensional. Whether or not those things come out directly in books, they certainly come out indirectly if you know those things about your character. The Danbury story, I've known for a while kind of what he was about and what motivated him and why he was the way he was. All of that finally came out in this final book. All of the readers finally find out because Danbury's really stoic. So he's one of those characters that if he can say 3 words, he's never going to say 5. As few words as possible. So he's ex-military. You get that early on. I mean, there are little tidbits of his story that you get early on, but really not enough to piece together to understand why he's kind of aloof, very stoic, and has that kind of clipped speech pattern where he's not going to say more words than he has to. And if he ever does, it's because he's excited about something. So that's a multi-dimensional character. He actually wasn't based on anybody I know. He just sort of came together as honestly the antithesis of Matthew, because Matthew's very warm and very friendly, and Matthew's, the kind of warm and fuzzy character, and Danbury is not at all. And so he really just developed as the antithesis of Matthew, and together they make a great team. But Danbury grows and comes around, and he's warmer and fuzzier by the end of the books too.
There you go. Well, there's a lot for everyone to read. You can get the whole rainbow of books available to you, and it looks great on your shelf. If anything, you need them after you read them. Put them out and display them. They look great together. That's a nice incentive for everyone to go buy all the books. And I would encourage everyone who buys the books to also buy another copy and send them to your friends that you know would love it. Leave reviews.
Please
Let
leave
people
reviews.
know why, right? They're so important, aren't they?
They are. And I don't understand why it's like pulling teeth sometimes to get people to go back, because they'll email me or they'll put it on social media, and they're not there as reviews. And the Amazon algorithms. These books are Amazon, Barnes and Noble, downloadable in all the e-formats. And then, of course, they're orderable by bookstores. So if you go to your little local independent bookstore and they don't have them, you can ask for them to order them. I love to support indie bookstores, so I'll put that plug in there.
Yeah.
But the reviews are just sometimes really hard to get. And I don't understand why people don't want to go do that. But yes, if you read them and you love them, please review them.
Yeah, let people know. And then also tell somebody about this episode so they can also fall in love with Lee as an author and connect with her and follow her journey. And I'm going to hold the door open for you, Lee. Come back in the future as new projects are coming out and releasing. I'd love to keep a nice warm chair for you to come back.
Oh, I would love that. I've enjoyed chatting with you so much.
It's exciting to have you here. I love talking to an author that's been writing as much as you have. Just the depth of your characters and the stories and how you do what you do. It's amazing. It's really, truly amazing to see an author write as much as you do and to be a part of your world and anticipate that there's even more great stuff coming down the road.
I sure hope so. Inspiration keeps striking, and I'm going to keep following it.
There'll be a lot of 3 a.m. writing sessions when you can't sleep and that moment happens.
There are.
So I'm looking forward to seeing the results of all that.
That's exactly what happens. If I wake up at 3 a.m. and there's a scene developing or the characters are talking, I get up because I know if I wait till tomorrow morning, it's not going to be there as fresh and as vivid and as crisp as it is right then. So yeah, I write at 3 in the morning.
There you go. And if you're up and you can't sleep, then grab a copy of Lee's book and read at 3 in the morning, and that'll help you as well.
There
right?
you go. I'd like that.
Done. I love it.
Connecting with
Thank you,
readers
Lee,
at
so
3
much
in
for
the
being
morning.
here. Right? Yeah. Make sure you read it and share it, everybody. Lee, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much. I enjoyed it.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5. Kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.